All right, good morning and welcome to this Friday's Downtown Management Forum, Re-Entry for Retailers. We have 4 panelists today, 2 design professionals, Jonathan Tyler and Wendy Andrew Dole from Gensler, as well as 2 small business owners, Lisa Allen from Bella Nail Lounge and Bar and Megan Lavelle Lucan from Washington General Store. Looking forward to a interesting conversation from our panelists about reentry. Real quick, for those of you who don't know us, Downtown New Jersey is a member-supported nonprofit organization. We provide education and advocacy around downtown revitalization. We've been holding these forums for several months now, pretty much since the shutdown. You can go online to view video, summaries, PowerPoints, resources, etc., from past forums. And next week, we will be doing commercial district recovery. So this one will be more tuned to, downtown managers, public officials, etc., with Larissa Ortiz of Street Sense, who just came out with a commercial district recovery guide. Just as some of you know, Downtown New Jersey is on the Main Street Committee of the Governor's Restart and Recovery Council, and some of the slides that came out of this morning, we have our call 9 o'clock every Friday morning before I have this. Some of the slides I thought would be interesting and actually kind of tee up our discussion today. A few that I wanted to share. So here is how likely residents are to resume certain activities, and I highlighted in particular retail, since we're talking about that, that a good majority of people won't be going back to retail until they see that cases of COVID don't increase after the stay at home, or even after most of the community resume this activity. So, that's interesting. We see retail more using it right now just because that's where, your grocery stores, your drugstores, et cetera. So I think those are the essentials that people are using. How that I wish they had like an essential, non-essential breakdown there. So that you'd have a better idea. And then you can also see restaurants, malls, and gyms. I wish they also didn't have, beauty salons and nail salons in the survey, because I think that would have also been interesting. Here is what consumers want to see in order to resume normal activity. And the big thing is a vaccine or an effective drug to treat people. But there's a number of things that people are looking for before they're really fully going to resume activities and feel confident. And then the following one in super tiny print, sorry, is New Jersey residents place a heavier emphasis on promoting safety in the workplace than the national average. So talking about sanitizing, masks, etc. And then I think there's 1 or 2 more slides. This is just looking at the amount of working capital businesses have, which has actually increased. And I think because of PPP and various grants and things, money is starting to come in, but it's not a wonderful number. And during today's call, we were actually talking about the cost of doing these things, buying the sanitizer, buying the PPE, buying the shields, etc. And yeah, sure, they had 3 months operating cash, but that's not with this added expenses that we're talking about. And finally, business confidence is actually going down. But in earlier May, 24% expected a return to usual business in 2 to 3 months, compared to only 10% earlier in June. So small businesses, sadly, are not feeling particularly confident. So with that as a backdrop, I would like to switch over. Again, here's our 4 panelists, and we will be starting with Jonathan and Wendy, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Jonathan, are you sharing yours, or Wendy?
Yep, I am going to share mine.
Okay.
Oh, it says host disabled participant.
Now, all participants. I thought I fixed these things every time.
Oh, now it's working.
Now it's working. There you go.
All right, there we go. Cool. So you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
We do.
Okay, perfect. So thanks everybody for inviting us to talk today. My name is Jonathan Tyler. Most of you probably know me. I'm a retail architect in our lifestyle retail practice area in Morristown, New Jersey. I'm also practice area lead for the Northeast region for Gensler. I'm joined today by Wendy Andrew Doyle, who is leading our consulting studio in Morristown. Wendy kind of goes between all different areas of our practice areas for Gensler. So is amazing resource and it's like incredibly knowledgeable about what's going on right now in terms of day by day. Obviously, everything has kind of been shaken up and it's a bit of a kind of day by day thing in terms of how we're moving forward. So with that said, I'm presenting today a deck that we started working on back in April. Actually, it was released as part of our dialogue platform, and it was released really. Target audience was our retail clients, of which are typically national retailers or international retailers. We've kind of modified this today and brought it up a little bit up to date in terms of some of the contemporary thinking, and so I'm going to present to you kind of our thoughts about how to be safe and how to kind of move forward and how retailers can move forward in a sensible way with an eye on the downtown. So that said, I'll move forward. Obviously, the coronavirus turned our whole world upside down. We're struggling with, in terms of coming to terms with it. As you just said, Courtney, we're going to be coming to terms with it for the immediate future. It's a little bit of kind of like testing, moving forward, one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. And this is just to remind everybody, this is kind of where we are right now. So this is the originally published road back map from the state. This has kind of sort of been superseded by a bunch of other things that are on NJ.gov right now, but I think it's still relevant in terms of what the path is looking like. And we've now entered into stage 2, as everybody knows. And with that, with stage 2, retail businesses have been pretty explicit, as have restaurants, in terms of what the state are mandating. Obviously, limiting occupancy to 50% at any one time, establishing hours of operation for exclusive use for high-risk individuals, as we've seen in our grocery stores, etc., that have been essential services. And so effectively, this is like a bigger version, or kind of smaller version, should I say, of the same thing. It's about safety of employees, safety of customers, and sanitizing and separation, and things like touchless technology and things like this. These are things that they're suggesting, and they're also telling us, obviously, to mark out the 6-foot distances and in line with what you've seen seeing in supermarkets and things. In terms of the restaurant, we just wanted to kind of remind everybody where that stands right now. It's now limited to 10% of occupancy, exterior dining. 6-foot distance between workers and customers, except for exchange of goods. Again, it's the usual things that we've all been hearing about. So I'm going to go through those, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about how those might be employed practically. So what next? What can retailers do to prepare for future resilience? Store designs should be, sorry, I've got sorry to move forward too quickly. Should be considered the limited number of touch points a person has in the space. That's key. And clearly messaging, navigating and circulation for larger retail spaces in particular. I think the key thing is that one size does not fit all, clearly, for all retailers. If you take a sample of downtown type spaces, you've got stores, general purpose stores, apparel stores, gift stores, etc. You've got dining establishments. You have, and then you've got quite a few one-on-one businesses, such as nail salons or hairdressers, that kind of thing. And then you may have movie theaters and things like that. And each of those things has with it a certain kind of a set of rules that, if you like, in terms of separation, in terms of practically what you need to operate your business, and then at the same time, kind of how you navigate that. Also, with each of those, there's also a dwell times kind of component to this as well. Typically, if you're going into a downtown retail store, It may be for a quick visit, it may be relatively short, you may be there for a relatively short time, and you're able to separate pretty easily from the customers, from the staff, etc. Dining room establishment, you're going to be sitting with your friend or family, relatively close proximity, and served by somebody that has to try and be at 6 foot distance away from you, and obviously that's a little bit longer. The one that's obviously really challenging is that you get to one-on-one businesses such as hairdressers, nail salons, where obviously physical contact is an absolute must, and it's also a longer period of time as well. And then we get movie theaters where kind of everybody's together, and obviously that's an extended period of time. Now that's something that is still on the horizon, and obviously out of all these things is the kind of one that everybody's going to be most risk averse to. So we're going to see how this pans out through the other ones, I imagine. So employing this in terms of a small-ish retail space, how do we kind of navigate that a little bit? And the first thing to do is obviously identify key touch points, hotspots. Strip it down to the real basics. You've got the front door to the street that everybody's coming through. That's the thing everybody's touching. That's the thing you've got to keep an eye on in terms of sanitization, things like that. Then obviously the next thing is going to be your cash wrap position. That's the point where most interaction occurs with the customer and with the client. Sorry, with the management and the customer. And then obviously you've got your display areas and things like that, which is a little less so. And things like restrooms and things like that, I don't know if they're open. They may be open to maybe it may have to be open to the customers. If they are, then obviously again that comes in that real key decision of how to make sure that it's being cleaned, and you're kind of notifying that the clients that it is clean. Obviously, deploying distance separation, we all know about that from the grocery stores, I said, super key. One thing I'd say with that is, obviously the distance separation is just so everybody I'm not sure if people are aware of this, but the 50% occupancy that's been mandated is effectively based on that number. So if you take a standard retail number and divide it, that's effectively what you get in terms of separation from people. Now, that's imagining that that number is effectively based on your entire square footage of the footprint, whereas in reality, you've got furniture, you've got things like that, people have got to move around. So there becomes an onus on the management to ensure that what is comfortable for that space. It's really important that each business sees this as a little bit, to their own space and kind of monitors their own space accordingly to terms of occupancy. But spaces that may have queues outside, you've got to think about things like, well, how do you activate the window displays? How do you that becomes something that's much more important than it was before. And then you've got areas that you simply can't avoid contact, obviously the cash wraps and things like that. So you may want to consider physical screens. Obviously, protecting your employee and customers is key. Knowing business cares deeply about employees and demonstrates the business values of people and customers will take note. That's key from what we're hearing from our retailers. Really important. One key thing is really simple, but kind of, just to remind everybody that obviously the spaces are what they are. There's only so much you can do, but what you can do is to work with your existing furniture arrangement, maybe change your little furniture arrangement a little bit to create a physical boundary wherever possible between your staff and between your customers, so that you've got kind of like highways, if you like, of your back of house events versus your front of house events. And that way it's training your staff to kind of keep to those zones as much as possible, as much as practically possible, to kind of navigate the store. Obviously, we just talked about that enabling contact to transactions is key, and I'll go into that in towards the end of this deck, how important that might be into other things as well. It's, everybody is pretty much going on to people paying things on the phone or pin and chip at this point. All the credit cards are going there, so it's kind of almost there. It's something that retailers should be embracing. obviously getting the training right, as we've just seen. Obviously, staff have to orchestrate this whole thing. It's not going to be easy, but it's about communication. Let's make sure that the staff are properly trained in being able to do this and orchestrate this whole thing properly and effectively. And obviously for the businesses, to make sure that the businesses are sustaining themselves in the best way they possibly can. Cleaning policy is really important. I think that one thing we've heard from a lot of our retailers is conspicuous cleaning is actually quite important. So whether that means actually physically doing it, or whether it means just putting signage and things like that, this has been cleaned in the last 30 minutes, etc. All really good stuff that people feel will kind of help people's comfort levels in the space. And obviously with that, providing appropriate personal protective equipment. And to go back to the diagram that I showed originally, obviously that ramps up the closer the proximity of the store staff to the customer, how those two things interact. And obviously it's about sensibility and about trying to function properly as well at the same time. So it's a kind of tricky one to navigate. Antimicrobial surfaces, this is something that a lot of manufacturers are looking at. I'm not going to go too much on that, but it's something that to consider. And then I think the next part of this is just to talk a little bit about what happens next. So obviously we've just talked about all of the real practical things you can do with an existing space, but then there's a kind of what's the long-term gain. How do we deal with the current changing market, and what's happening if everything's shook up a little bit? How do we deal with that? So number one is obviously easing customers' stress and maximizing their time in the stores is really key. The stores need to consider themselves as a brand. That's really more important than anything. It's like they are a brand. They're a brand on their downtown location. People go there for a reason. They need to enhance that, and they need to kind of expand on it. And brand experiences are human experiences, so you need to make it worthwhile people visiting. It's not just kind of about keeping the same old, same old. There has to be a reason. As we heard last week, I thought there was a really good presentation last week, particularly the services that were offered, My Downtown Mobile and Beyond Main, great services, which I think really key in tying all of this together for small retailers in particular, and providing a platform into entry into these other retail kind of platforms that are good for your business. So obviously, again, each business is different from the next. Some places may maybe find success in having a separate eBay store and may want to kind of shout that out a little bit. Some places, I don't know if, for instance, like, I don't know, let's say a hobby store or something like that, may have a YouTube presence where they want to kind of present their goods on YouTube, and then they want to link to that as well as their eBay store. This is really key, and those things are already set up, but the time is now to make sure that the retailers have got these several platforms. It's not just about the physical space. It's really the digital space is equally as important. And with that, just to note that the generation gap as during this pandemic has shrunk massively. So people who were not using those online platforms are using those online platforms now. There are people using mobile technology that they were in a way that they weren't before. Medical consultancy, therapy have all been boom areas during the pandemic, obviously for obvious reasons. So people are a lot more confident and comfortable with those technologies now. That isn't going away. That's going to stay. The other thing you can do, again, to tie this in, is that obviously the more digital platforms you have, it allows you the ability to be able to implement real-time inventory solutions with your, say, eBay platforms and things like this, so that you can provide clarity and transparency on what's available to your customers. And this is really important, transparent about supply chain lineage. Obviously not just from the pandemic, but from other things that are happening in our world right now. It's really important that that we're clear about where the stuff comes from. I think for resiliency as well. So with that, I just want to kind of summarize my part of this presentation with customers are going to demand a new retail environment that meets their new and ever-changing expectations. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pass the buck to Wendy. She's going to talk a little bit about what is happening in our workplaces that's going to affect our downtowns as well, and what you guys are going to start to see as businesses start to go back. So Wendy, if you just say next, I will kind of scoot through this.
Sure. Great. And thanks for the intro. So as Jonathan mentioned, omni-channel presence, good plans in the retail and in that consumer environment, planning and cleaning, all of that is being considered in the workplace as well. That's that space in between the street and your presence and the building right behind where everybody's starting to go back to work. So this is the foot traffic that's coming into your space. This is the population that is going to be seeing your brand and passing it and hopefully engaging in it at some point, at some capacity. So it's important to have that awareness of what's going on in those businesses around you, whether they're small offices or large offices. A lot of what he mentioned is actually translating to that workplace side. If you go to the next slide. So I just have a few really short slides here to share with you. It's all about outside to inside. So just in, your business and service model, we're looking at this in office buildings and workplace environments, outside to inside. So whether I'm taking public transportation or driving a car, what happens as soon as I get to my point of parking that car or disembarking that public transportation? How do I get into space? Am I going into a shared environment? And this is something to consider also if you have a small business in a shared environment like a shopping mall, shopping plaza, or street plaza. How are people passing through that? How are they being screened or checked for health and safety? How are they circulating into space? Again, you can think about this in the context of your business as well, moving through, whether it's vertical transportation or horizontal, to get to the ultimate destination, whether that's a desk or someplace else that is their place of work. And then what are the other means of circulation in and out of space? And this also can harken back to, is there a front door and a back door that can be leveraged into a building that you can maybe create one-way path of travel to give a sense or perception of safety? Next slide. And then as we move deeper into the space in the building itself, what are some of the shared environments? So what are some of the things that we're looking at from workplace context, but again, is very applicable across the board? Are shared spaces like those public restrooms and how they're going to be facilitated, potentially partially locked down, cleaned, serviced, and how do tenants of these spaces and these businesses use them? Also some mechanical elements too that can and sometimes cannot be affected, change can be affected, and that is ventilation and filtration, even exchanging air faster through space, since we know that, there's a concern of viral travel that way. And then Jonathan also mentioned wayfinding, signage, and graphics. So messaging how people move through space, how it's being serviced. Is it taking an alarmist tone? Is it taking a friendly tone? Again, this all ties back into, what we're doing with the businesses, but also how you might message in your environment as well. It's really important to sort of communicate intent of navigating space. And then going back to reinforcing protocols and cleaning. So if you want, we're paying particular attention to this. If you want to have your audience or your clientele or your employee workforce perceive that you're really caring for space, one of the strategies a lot of our clients are doing is showing the cleaning happening all day long. It used to be we shut down and custodial services come in and do their thing behind the scenes, and it's sort of that behind the curtain approach. Not so much anymore. It's about seeing and showing this cleaning protocol and policy actually happening in real time. And that's actually also dovetailing on what you're seeing in the healthcare industry as well. It's about constant visual display of that cleaning. Next. And then now we're talking about in the space, so in the workplace itself. So as people come in, what are they doing? Where are they going? Are they an employee? Are they a guest? Again, you can translate this easily as well to your business, employee or customer. And how is that either combined or separated? So again, that foot traffic into the building and then into the space. With a good strategy, you're going to see some businesses come back to work a little faster, and you're going to see the town slowly coming back to life a little faster as well as these strategies come online. And it won't be the capacity day one that, you know, we were used to, you know, pre-COVID, but it will start ramping up. And we're also looking at how people are checking into space, paths of circulation into space, just like Jonathan was mentioning earlier, creating one-way traffic patterns, or even creating let's say roadblocks to prevent collision points in space, so that people are not potentially, you know, physically colliding or creating pinch points in the environment that make one feel uncomfortable, and also reduce that potential for distancing. And then again, leveraging other forms of ingress egress so that people can move in and out of space without using the primary, vehicle, which might have been an elevator in the past or a single door that everyone preferred. Next, I think that might have been the last one. Oh, one more. And then actually looking at like the microclimate. So what's happening in the immediate area. So some of the things businesses are looking at right now are obviously de-densifying and providing more separation from work seat to work seat. And what does that look like? Obviously, that's a capacity reduction in a very big way. And what social distancing feels right by organization. 6 feet is obviously the high water mark everybody's looking at, but it might need to be more depending on how your organization performs and what your comfort level might be. And also how enclosed spaces are being handled. You know, taking down doors and partitions and creating more open environments are actually something we're looking at in small businesses. And in food service areas, particularly in larger offices where there is a cafeteria, completely rethinking what individuals can handle, touch, or interact with. That it's a much more curated experience. And in some cases are completely offline, like sharing certain communal things like a refrigerator or a microwave. So this is completely being rethought to ensure safety and wellness is at the forefront. Maybe an inconvenience for a little while, but hopefully we'll be past that sooner than later. And then leveraging outdoor space, and anyone who has the ability to do that is obviously, you know, needs to seize that immediately, you know, because we know that we can do a little more with the outdoor space given the transmission in open air is less of a risk. And people want to be outside right now. I mean, the reality is everybody's a little itchy. They want to get back to regular, you know, the new normal is as much as it can be. And so outdoor gives a little sense of connecting back with nature. Next. And this is just a really nice sort of composite that shows, you know, some of the visuals behind all the multi-layered strategies I just mentioned for the office building or the office environment, whether it's a single floor holding 20 people in a small business, or it's something as large as headquarters plaza, or, you know, a multi-office building, you know, or campus in the area. It's really layered. It's very unique to every business site, landlord and tenant situation, but we are seeing some common themes emerge, and it's really about comfort, perception of comfort and safety that is of paramount right now. So you will see that the more people feel comfortable, the more they're going to come back out onto the streets, the more presence there will be in town, and more opportunity to hopefully boost again the services you're providing, or the business that you're offering the community. I think that's it for my piece.
Great. Thank you both. We'll reserve questions to the end. We want to hear from our two small business owners. And I'm just going to pull up that PDF real quick. And first we will start with Lisa Allen, who's the owner of Bella Nail Lounge and Bar in Newark. So what I've asked our two participants is to maybe react a little bit to what they heard. To react a little to what they've heard, and then also talk about what they've been doing and their concerns and what they plan to do and all of that. So good. I'm glad I picked good pictures, Lisa. You're first. Go ahead.
I love it. So I just want to say I'm upset with myself because I didn't start taking notes until the end. So I'm going to have to go back and watch it because I definitely think there were some things that prompted thoughts for me that maybe I need to revisit or look at a little bit more. I thought about our Keurig. I did not think about our microwave. So I need to listen to the presentation a little bit more after it's over. I think the information that was shared was great, and not having nothing to do with my business. As he started to talk about movies, I started to think about a lot of the movie theaters now, you do buy your tickets in advance. So for those movie theaters, they might be able to have a better opportunity at transitioning back to the new normal, because the movie theaters can minimize the number of tickets that are available for the seats. And similar to us, for the beauty industry, the guidelines for us came out last Friday, and we're, according to the guidelines, supposed to be appointment only, which we were already. So I think that that'll help make some things for us easier to transition to. We already have an autoclave to make sure we were sterilizing our implements, but we're gonna look at changing how we assign implements to the technicians. We have 4 pedicure chairs, as you can see in the picture, but they are not 6 feet apart. So we will only be able to open up using 2 of the pedicure chairs right now, because I do not want to put the barrier in between, because one of the things will be we're gonna have limited access to the stairs that actually get you onto the pedicure platform. But we are ensuring that we are meeting the guidelines of the New Jersey Consumer Affairs as well as the City of Newark, and we are awaiting our actual permit to reopen, because in Newark you have to submit an application to reopen. I think I covered most of our stuff, but for us, the sanitation, we already used the hospital grade purple top sanitizing wipes. We use Lysol wipes. We have the barbicide. We have UV sterilizers already. So as far as the cleanliness portion, it's just reacclimating the staff, making sure we're being consistent, ensuring that we're accountable, and then just moving forward with some of the adjustments where we might have wore a mask from time to time, but now the customers have to wear a mask. We have electronic checkout. So whereas before we didn't tap the chips, now we're gonna just have the clients tap the chips. We're not gonna require signatures right now on the services. So we're gonna just have to honor and expect the clients not to dispute the charges because we're not getting signatures at this time. We will give clients the opportunity to leave their card on file, which will make the checkout touchless, and entering tips at checkout. For the services, we're going to ask the clients to send the tips via Cash App or one of those platforms directly to the technicians. So those are just some of the things we're going to do.
That's all good stuff. And Jonathan, remind me when we get to the actual moderated part to talk about this country versus Europe when we talk about contactless pay and why we are so far behind Europe when it comes to that and having to sign receipts and such. But yeah, Lisa, I think it sounds like the one thing Emily suggested to me, Emily Manns, who's on our board and EMI strategy, said you were thinking you might open a little later than allowed because of some hesitancy with cleaning. Is that still in your mind?
So say that one more time.
Emily had suggested that you were thinking about, I think you could open in theory on Monday, that you were going to wait a little while.
We're not opening June 22nd. We're going to wait till July 1st. Our schedules are open effective July 1st, although based on the state, we could open on Monday. I don't have any interest in being the guinea pig. I don't want to be the one who's caught up in contact tracing from day one. I don't want to put that on the staff, or I would like everyone to have a little time to acclimate to the idea of what the new normal is, and we'll open a week or so after that.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Lisa. I'm sure some of our participants will have some more questions for you afterwards, but let's jump to Megan, who is the owner of Washington General Store in Hoboken, recommended by Stuart Copperweiss, who's the executive director of the Hoboken Business Alliance.
Hi, everyone. I mean, I think it goes without saying there's been a wealth of information shared here. It's all kind of a guessing game, and we're just doing our best. We were able to open on Monday, which, you know, we've seen almost every day a few more people trickle in and a few more people trickle in, but we've really tried to open up the space as much as possible, which, as you can see from the photo, my store is 800 square feet. So that's a challenge every day. We did pull merchandise off the floor to allow for more room to take displays away. And, you know, we are limiting 10 people in the store at a time, which we haven't even had to do yet. I think people are just slowly getting back into the idea of shopping again. But, you know, people are excited to get out too. So I think that that's something we need to keep in mind, because people are excited to shop again and people are excited to go get their hair done again. So we do need to still make it a fun experience for them, but obviously with being as cautious as possible. A couple of the things that we did, which actually is what I ran my business off of from the start of the stay home order, was that we started to post about 10 times a day on Instagram. That's just posts. And then we would include everything on our stories as well. And I have a younger customer, roughly between 25 and 40 is our main customer. So they're very adept in the use of social media. So that was immediately the platform we went to when we were forced to shut down. And we had people just shopping off of Instagram. We don't have an e-commerce website. So we've been running completely off of social media, where they direct message us, they Venmo. We did curbside pickup when that was available. We did home delivery in the beginning. But now we see that that's still continuing to go on. So although they're able to come into the store, they do want to have somewhat of a prepared game plan. As you can see, I mean, I'm a home and gift store. We have thousands of SKUs, and it's the type of store you come into and you want to browse around for sometimes 20 minutes. People are just looking around. So we've noticed the time frame that a customer is in the store is much shorter than it typically is, because they're coming in with either a purpose or they've seen something online that they're coming in to get. And we're still doing pickups as we were before we opened, and that's been we're almost like half and half of the business we're doing in store versus our regular online pickups. So I think the mention of cleaning while business is open is really important. We keep our Lysol right on the counter where everybody can see it, where it's, a reminder to the employees to continue to use it constantly. We're constantly wiping down our heavy traffic areas, which are obviously the front door and the register. We're sanitizing every night when we close. We have a shield. We're not allowing people to use our bathrooms. We've removed, which was sort of an afterthought, but an important, I think, piece of it is we've removed all of our apothecary testers. So whether it's like a solid cologne that someone would touch and put on themselves, we've removed all of those and put signs up like, please ask us if you want to smell something. We're taking employees' temperatures before their shift starts and at the end of their shift. Again, just it's all perception of, making customers feel that we are, doing all that we can, and as well as the employees, that we just want to make sure that everybody's healthy when they come to work and when they leave work. And we just keep plugging away, but it's going to be an interesting start to all of this, I think. As you can see in the photo here, Hoboken has allowed us to move merchandise onto the sidewalk and take up the entire sidewalk space. That's also applicable to sidewalk cafes. So we've started to see diners come out. Again, it's the same thing. It's like a few more every day I see on the street. With my business, it's kind of difficult to move that kind of product onto the sidewalk. So this is kind of, we decided to make it more of like a living room. If you have to wait to get in the store, you have a comfortable place to sit. But for certainly an apparel store, this is a big opportunity for them to open up their space onto the sidewalk, just with simple rolling racks. But overall, we've seen a positive response from customers, that they're ready to shop, they're happy to be out, and they're also being cautious as well. So I think if we can both kind of do our part, we can keep this thing moving.
Great, thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
I guess I got a question for both you and Lisa. I'm going to take my moderator's prerogative and ask the first question, because I think I don't know that anyone really asked this, because it's you shouldn't talk about money, but how much has it cost you? And I'm guessing for Lisa probably more, because there's more contact, but if you know, rough estimate to kind of do what you need to do to get ready to buy whatever supplies, put the shield up, etc., and forgetting the loss that you might have already recognized over the 3 months.
We spent about $1,000 in PPE.
So I think for me, the difference is it's close to 1,000, only because we had to get face shields, because if they're going to do eyebrow waxing or facials, they have to have a face shield on with it, because we have to use masks more than we did. The bigger financial provide less services than we traditionally would. So it's the summertime, everybody wants a pedicure. We're not going to be able to accommodate everyone's request for a pedicure, because we can't do 4 at a time. We can only do 2. So I think the additional supplies lines.
Thank you, Lisa. And Megan?
Yeah, we've spent about $1,000 in PPE. We have hand sanitizer stations. I've provided masks and gloves for both the employees and for shoppers. We don't let anyone come in the store without a mask. So if they don't have one, I don't have to turn them away, have them available for them. And the costliest part has been this crazy electrostatic sprayer that I have to sanitize all the products. But it cuts down in time. So, what I'm not paying my staff to stay there and sanitize every product, I've put into this.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. If you have a link to that, throw it in the chat. I'm sure people would be interested to know about that. So I see one question on the chat, and then we can kind of open it up just so everybody knows this is a dialogue. It's both questions and it's suggestions, and so however you want to participate, and you don't necessarily have to put it in the chat. We're a small enough group that you're welcome to just chime in. But the first question is how to safely sanitize refrigerators, microwave, coffee station in shared office space. Are there best practices?
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly speak to that a little bit. It's a tricky one. Part of that is going to be literally cleaning all the time.
Lysol wipes, Lysol wipes, if I would say traditional Lysol.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also a lot of our clients are coming up with sanitation stations, for lack of a better, less
I would
rhymey
say traditional
kit.
Lysol.
Yeah.
She's having a tech difficulty and it's,
Yeah, I think it's like looping.
yeah.
But the sanitation stations will have spray bottle of a cleanser, you know, whether it's a bleach or some sort of disinfectant, paper towels that can be thrown out so that you don't have any kind of reuse material, no cloth materials or anything like that that the virus can sit on. Sanitation wipes, like single use bleach wipes, and also gel, sanitizing gel, so that you're cleaning the appliance, you're cleaning the surface, and you're cleaning your hands. So it's the trifecta. But a lot of our clients are taking some of the appliances offline. They're putting a sign on it, they're unplugging it, and they're saying, please bring lunches in that you don't need to heat. Where they're not doing that, some of them are leaving half the appliances online, not all of them. So they might be providing some usage on microwaves and refrigerators, but they're really discouraging the community share.
So Wendy, how are they doing things like, you know, milk and things like that? You know, if you've got cream and things.
Yeah, no. So that's being serviced by office services, and that's the dedicated fridge that no one's allowed to touch. So this way, it's only one person handling it, going in and out, and there's less risk of someone potentially, you know, like bringing something from home and you've transmitted the virus on product. A lot of research has come out that viral tracing or viral transmission is not as prevalent on surfaces or groceries. So, you know, it's going to be whatever, you know, the organization really feels comfortable with, but trying to really limit how many people touch something and use something has been the primary strategy. So
it sounds like we're going to have a backslide on single use, lots of things, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be a little tricky, especially for offices where, you know, a larger workforce is going to come back. You know, it might be you may be asking your employees to change the way they do things when they come to work. You might be asking, can you make a sandwich? You don't have to microwave for lunch instead. Or this week we're going to support a local business and we're going to get you lunch, and everybody gets a boxed lunch. You know, there are also some give backs happening as well to encourage, you know, the small business partnerships, but also reduce the community area issues that are going to, you know, potentially cause more transmission issues.
Yeah, stay tuned on that. We're actually going to have an article in the next newsletter about programs with gift cards. Audible has been doing this for a long time, but they stepped up also during this to help support the small businesses. I see Megan posted the electrostatic hand sanitizer link, so if anyone wants that. Anybody else have questions, comments, other best practices, thoughts they want to share? I don't see many faces. I'll say a lot of words, a lot of video this week.
I got some questions for Lisa and Megan. In terms of Megan, you said you have approximately 50% online business, which is pretty high. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we never had it before, so.
Oh, that's really interesting. So that was my question. Did this kind of uptake during the pandemic, and is this something you kind of managed as real time? And kind of what did you have before, and what do you have now, and how do you plan on taking it forward?
Yeah, we had a couple of years ago, we had an e-com site, and it just didn't generate enough to be worth it, the work, all of it. So we shut it down. So when this happened, I didn't have an e-com site, but we have a decent following on Instagram. So we just figured, like, this is the only way to do this until we can get a website up and running, which I still have in the works. We've been taking our time because this has kind of been working. It's a lot of work. But I think there's something about the immediacy of it, and people feel like they have a personal shopper. So right now, what I brought back more staff than I had before, because we've been needing to manage the online portion. And, you know, the hope is that that pays off and that once the store is back up and running to its normal speed, we also have maintained the uptick on the online end. So one thing that we were doing in the beginning that I hope to continue with is home delivery. You know, we're a small city, mile square, so it's somewhat easy to make those home deliveries. We stopped doing it just for safety reasons. We didn't feel like it was safe anymore, but you know, we did see the response to that as being something that people, I think, would be interested in the future. You know, there's a mother at home who can't get out to go shopping. You know, she can easily order something from us and we can have it delivered within the next day. Why not? So there's a few things that we plan to do going forward. And one is really to kind of change the Instagram feed. The way we were doing it was product, but more lifestyle mixed in. And now it's like straight up product every day, lots of it. And people are receptive to it. Yeah, the plan is to get up and running with a website. We have a developer in the works so that we can kind of move it to that situation. But the one thing we are adding into the website, which I didn't have before, is a chat function, because I have found that, you know, people want to keep their distance, but they still want to be assisted in the sale. So they need help curating a gift. And that chat will allow that to kind of be the same thing as an Instagram messenger.
Cool. And Lisa, how have you been navigating this? Obviously, as a service provider, you're not selling goods per se. How have you been? Oh, it looks like, I'm not sure if you're off.
I didn't fully, so I had some technical difficulty. You kind of turned into an alien. I didn't fully hear your question.
Okay, as I was saying, as a service provider, you obviously, it's not so straightforward for you. How have you been navigating the downtown in terms of maintaining presence?
So for me, we have posted a lot of non-nail salon related stuff on our Instagram, a lot of jokes, humorous things in regards to coping with the virus, dealing with my anxieties on the forefront of what we were going through. We've had a good following on social media, and it's actually grown a lot over the last month or so, but more so for us, the growth in the social media has come because of the increased awareness and interest in supporting Black businesses. So we've been having dialogue in regards to that. And then there's just lots of nail humor that we've been able to post to kind of distract people from what's going on in the world around us. So it's not been anything really personal care or nail salon related for the last 3 months. It's really just been digressing, connecting, and fun stuff.
Great. Does anyone else have questions, comments? Got lots of boxes on there. Right. If not, we can wrap up. I want to thank Gensler, who this is their idea to do this presentation. Gensler is a member of Downtown New Jersey. Thank you for your continued support and for kind of pulling this together. And thank you to both Megan and Lisa for bringing it home and giving us the retailer perspective. I think that's really important. I live in my high policy bubble up here and don't actually necessarily always get down into the the day-to-day with the businesses. So I think it was really good to hear. So with that, again, I will thank you all and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.